The Roman Empire. Rome was one of the greatest cities in ancient history. Rome built an empire consisting of many countries. This empire included everything around the Mediterranean Sea and most of the European continent. To conquer all these countries, Rome built the strongest army ever seen. The soldiers could do amazing things. They crossed dry deserts and dark forests. They fought bravely. What was it like to live in that army? The Roman Republic. At first, ancient Rome was a democracy. This meant that Roman citizens could vote for their leaders. It was called the Roman Republic and lasted from 509 to 27 BC. The Roman army was made up of paid volunteers who signed up for at least 25 years of service. There were two main types of soldiers, legionaries and auxiliaries. The legionaries were Roman citizens. They had to be over 17 years old. The auxiliaries were not Roman citizens. They were from places like Africa, France, and the Middle East. Auxiliaries often fought in the most dangerous places. A Roman Legionary. Together, let's imagine a Roman legionary called Brutus. Here he is. Hello, I was born in Rome. My family was poor, so I joined the army because it's a good way to earn a living. They pay me a salary every year. I own a sword, a shield, and several javelins. I wear armor and strong leather sandals. I fight in a group called a legion. A legion has about 5,000 soldiers. Training. From the very beginning, Brutus lives according to a strict routine. Brutus's tough captain trains him in Roman methods of fighting. They are very organized. Brutus practices throwing javelins. He learns to march in a line with other legionaries. He also learns a famous method called the testudo, turtle formation. That's when a group of soldiers use shields to protect their heads and bodies. Brutus's captain yells out, "Always remember these methods." Building a camp. One day, the captain says, "Soldiers, prepare yourselves. We're going to the front line." Brutus and the other soldiers have to carry their own equipment, which includes tents, pots and pans, and food. Often, they walk over 30 kilometers a day. Each day, the soldiers put up tents and build a camp. They dig a ditch and build a fence from wooden stakes around the camp. "This sure is a lot of work," says Brutus to another legionary. Camp life. Finally, Brutus and his fellow soldiers arrive at a permanent camp. It is built from stones. There are lots of these camps and forts all over the Roman Empire. "We'll be here for a long time, so get used to it," says the captain. Brutus and his fellow soldiers spend their time training, but most importantly, they follow their captain's orders. Any soldier who does not is punished. If, for example, a guard falls asleep while on duty, he can be sentenced to death. The life of the Roman legionaries. One day, the enemy appears on the horizon. The enemy soldiers yell at the Romans in a strange language. The Roman soldiers march out to fight them. Brutus's heart beats fast. He marches with his shield in front of him, and he can feel his fellow soldiers next to him. When they get close enough, the legionaries throw their javelins and immediately charge with their swords. This surprises their enemy. They all fight with their swords. The Roman soldiers are organized and well-trained. The Romans win easily. The spread of Roman culture. The Roman army took Roman culture wherever it went. They built roads that still survive today. They built bridges and aqueducts that carried water to nearby cities. They also built amphitheaters and bathhouses. The Roman camps and forts were built well. Often, once the Romans were finished with them, these forts would become the foundations for cities. The local people would move in and use all that had been built. Julius Caesar. Generals were very important in the Roman army. Generals often became the most important people in Roman society. A soldier's future often depended on his general's successes and failures. As a result, Roman soldiers were often more devoted to their general than to anyone else. One famous Roman general was Julius Caesar. Caesar was distinguished by his courage. He could be very charming, but he was quite heartless toward his enemies. He conducted many successful wars. The War Against the Gauls. One of Caesar's famous wars was against the Gauls. The Gauls lived in the land we now call France. They were led by a chieftain called Vercingetorix. Vercingetorix was a very smart leader. He refused to fight Caesar in a big battle. Instead, he made Caesar chase him through the countryside. Caesar's army became exhausted, and Caesar became frustrated. Losing the war would have been very bad for Caesar. He would have lost a lot of his fame and power. The Battle for Alesia. Vercingetorix took his army to the town of Alesia, where he thought they would be safe. But Caesar built strong walls around Alesia so the Gauls could not escape. Then he waited. The Gauls soon had no food and water. A huge Gaul army arrived to rescue Vercingetorix. They charged against Caesar like a giant wave. In a bloody battle, Caesar's soldiers fought them off. The Gauls were defeated. The murder of Julius Caesar. In 49 BC, Caesar led his soldiers into Italy and started a civil war. Caesar won the war and became dictator. Caesar was loved by the Roman people. He made a lot of positive changes. He gave grain to the poor, cleaned up the dangerous city streets, built a library, and created new jobs. However, Caesar was not loved by those in power. Members of the Senate were unhappy with Caesar. Together, they decided that Caesar must die. On March 15, 44 BC, Caesar was stabbed to death by members of the Senate during a Senate meeting. The life of retired soldiers. Both auxiliary and legionary soldiers could retire after 25 years. Upon retirement, auxiliary soldiers became Roman citizens. Legionary soldiers, who already were citizens, usually received a pension or some land to farm. Old legionary soldiers often retired to towns with other legionaries. These military towns were called colonias, and many modern towns grew out of them. One example is the town of Lincoln in England. Roman culture. Auxiliaries and legionaries like our friend Brutus built the Roman Empire. Even today, Rome's influence on much of modern culture can be seen. Languages like English, French, and Italian all descended from the language the Romans spoke. The Romans founded many modern cities, too. Roman soldiers would not have thought about their impact on the future. They did, however, know that they were fighting for a great civilization. They believed that Rome was something to fight for.